them a couple of seconds to get the computer going. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Goffstown Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting of September 7th, 2021. If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll get things started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The Goffstown Zoning Board is an elected board of 5 members and up to 5 appointed alternates. Currently, the board has 4 elected members and 1 alternate, actually 2 alternates. If anyone's interested in serving on the ZBA, that we ask that you see Nancy Larson in Town Hall for more information. The board has a posted agenda for each meeting and tends to follow the items in order, but not always. The board will open the public hearing on an application to receive testimony from the applicants, from the abutters, and from the affected parties, and to ask questions about the request. If the public hearing will then be closed, and the board will enter into a deliberative session to discuss the merits of the appeal. For each application, the board will decide to approve with conditions, deny, or continue to a later meeting. You're welcome to watch the deliberations here this evening, or you can contact Nancy Larson at Town Hall for the results. For an applicant's request to be approved, there must be an affirmative vote of at least 3 members. An applicant can request a continuance if there's not a full 5-member board. Tonight, we currently have a 5-member board. If you're aggrieved by a decision made by the ZBA tonight, you have the right to appeal to Superior Court. However, before appealing to Superior Court, you must request a rehearing with this board to preserve your right to appeal. That request must be filed within 30 days of the decision, and it must state all the reasons why the decision was unlawful or unreasonable. And failure to request a rehearing may forfeit your ability to appeal to Superior Court. And with that, I'm going to ask the board to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Nancy.
Nancy Larson, Zoning Code Enforcement Officer.
Denise Langley, member.
Leonard Stewart, Vice Chairman.
I'm Gail Lebrecq. I'm the chair and also the recording secretary.
Alan Yaton, member.
Jason Cody, alternate member.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes to the August 3rd meeting. Do we have any corrections or a motion?
I'll move we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay. And Jason, with no other regular members here, I'm going to appoint you as voting alternate for the night.
Thank you.
And so we have the motion and the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, and we're going to jump into doing correspondence before we start with the public hearings. They're both going to take just a quick second, but they do affect our going forward tonight. First is an email from Sharon DeRocher, our first applicant on our list, map 13, lot 31, and she has withdrawn her application for a variance. Do we need a motion for that, Nancy?
You could just be belt and suspenders, but the board is, should probably have a vote just accepting the request to withdraw
Okay.
the application.
I'll motion to accept the...
Okay, thank you, Denise. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. And the next one is an email from Sandra Parker, our other regular elected member, who has resigned. She's moving out of state. So I would like a motion to accept her resignation with regrets.
So moved.
I second, with regrets.
And I certainly wish her well in her new
Yes.
adventures. It sounds like it's going to be pretty exciting there.
Yeah, good for her.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then with the resignation of Sandra, we have an open position on our board, our 5-member board. And I'm going to make a motion that we nominate Jason as the alternate who's been here the longest, as that regular voting member.
I'll second that.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain just because it.
You don't have to abstain, you can vote
Okay.
for
You
yourself.
can vote for yourself.
Yes.
You already told me you were willing, so
Okay,
you
yes,
can vote
I'm
for
willing,
yourself.
so
Okay,
aye.
all right, so now we have set, Jason is now, instead of voting as an alternate member, he's gonna be voting as a regular member of the board. And we will get on to our first of the public hearings after Sharon DeRocher, and that would be Joshua and Aspen Eastman, owners and Brett Allard Esquire of Bernstein, Shure, Sawyer, and Nelson, PA, applicant seeking a variance to allow for one 11.9 square foot building sign, where building signs are not allowed in the RSBO 2 district, and a second variance is requested to allow for a 19.2 square foot freestanding sign, where the maximum allowed is 8 square feet. This concerns section 6.6 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance, and the property is located at 465 Mast Road, map 20, lot 19, zoned RSBO 2.
Madam Chair, before we open up discussion, can I just pull the board real quick? The attorney representing this group actually represented me, so I just wanted to pull the board to see if I should recuse myself. I don't see any conflict here, but I just wanted to ask.
You don't have, do you have conflict with the applicants in
I do
this
not.
application?
I do not.
And you can be non-biased.
I can. I just wanted to make sure.
Nope, that's,
And you do know
That's not
that
what we're doing
the
it.
final decision is always yours, the board would only make recommendations.
Yep,
if
that, I was just looking for recommendation. Doesn't seem
Okay,
like there's
no.
a problem, so
I-
good to go.
Okay, great.
thank you.
Oh, okay, and you must be Attorney Allard.
Nope,
No, oh, well, that's what it says.
I understand. I'm Roy Tilsley from Bernstein Shore. I work with Brett, so.
Okay.
He submitted the application, but I am here tonight. So
Okay.
I'm here tonight on behalf of Joshua and Aspen Eastman concerning their property at 465 Mast Road, map 20, lot 19. It is a 1.58 acre property that includes a 3-bedroom home, as well as a separate 5,500 square foot barn, which had been previously used as an antique shop. It's located in the RSBO, Residential Small Business and Office District Number 2. My clients have currently a Reiki and yoga studio on the property and are seeking variances for 2 signs, which essentially replace existing signs from the antique shop that have been there for very long but apparently never got permitted. So we've got, actually I have an updated sign package. I had called Nancy late today, but we've reduced the size of the freestanding sign. So if I can submit that. I think I have enough.
Thanks.
Do we need another one?
Actually, if there's an extra, I'll take one back.
There's an extra.
All right, so there's 2 signs we're seeking variances for. One is for a freestanding sign with external illumination. I'm submitting this updated sign package today because we have reduced that sign from, I think the proposal was 19.2 square feet to 14.58 square feet. So the sign package I just handed out is what we're proposing. The reason for the reduction, when we had asked the sign company to design the sign, they had designed it to fit within the frame, but had extended it down lengthwise a little bit more. We caught that over the weekend, and our intention was always to have the sign facing the same size as the sign that has been there for many years for the antique shop.
So they are the same size now?
This is the same size now at 14.58.
Okay.
If you look at what we had submitted previously, you see this kind of bottom of the frame here that's got a little half moon in it.
Yep,
That, originally we proposed the sign going all the way down. We looked at it, we realized that we were enlarging it, so we asked them to come back with the same size. So essentially, you know, the sign facing will be the same size as what was there for the antiques business. Freestanding signs are allowed under section 6.6 of the zoning ordinance, but are limited to 8 square feet. So we are larger than that, and then we'll need a variance because of that. The other sign and this is on page 2, and there's no changes here in terms of what we proposed in our application, is a sign on the front of the barn advertising the Reiki and yoga business. It replaces an antique sign. It is slightly smaller than what was there previously. Previously, the antique sign was 18 by 96. This sign will be 24 by 70 at 11.66 square feet. This sign is primarily to identify the business location to people who come onto the property, because there's 2 separate buildings. It's not really all that visible from Mass Road. If you're heading, I think it's westbound towards the town hall, you have to be really looking for it to see it. And even heading the other direction, you can see it a little bit better, but if you're not looking for it, you're not going to really notice it. My father lives in Bernardville, and I've driven that way hundreds of times and never really connected
Same here.
connected that particular sign with anything until I went looking for it when this application came in. We need a variance there because building signs are not allowed, but again, we're actually reducing the size of the sign that is currently on the building and was there when we bought the property. Again, there were no permits, as best we can tell, for either of those 2 signs. At the end of the day, the freestanding sign will be the same size, the barn size sign will be smaller than what had been there previously. I do have, if I can do, I promised my last set of handouts. 2 of the abutters have written letters in support of the application. The first letter is from the Philippi's, who are at 456 Mass Road across the street, and they're in support. And then the third page here is from our, if I have my geography right, either southern or eastern abutter at the Susies, who I believe are at 467 Mass Road, who are also in support of the variance requested. I've also included in the packet, and I apologize, I didn't collate properly, a letter from Dana Ford, who's a realtor at Blair Realty Partnership.
I'm sorry, I thought it was one pack.
Expressing his opinion that the variance as requested will not have a negative impact on the neighborhood or surrounding property values. To briefly address the criteria, and obviously we went into some detail in Attorney Allard's submission, we do not believe the variance will be contrary to the public interest and that it will be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. These signs are either the same size with the freestanding sign or smaller with the barn sign than what has been there previously. The fact that those signs existed without permits, I think, is a good indication that they have not interfered with the public interest. The signs support a use that's allowed within the zone. It is consistent with other signage within the neighborhood. There'll be no visual clutter by approving these signs, which again are consistent with what's in the neighborhood. And particularly the freestanding sign will allow visitors to identify this destination as the location of the Reiki and yoga studio as opposed to something else. One thing that's I think kind of interesting about this neighborhood is it really is truly mixed use. We have a lot of mixed use neighborhoods and zoning ordinances, but when you get there, they tend to be all one thing or another. This is really, as you drive along, a mix of office, commercial uses, and residential uses. And I think one of the challenges here is if you're a customer of an office or a commercial use, is finding the right property and not pulling into someone's driveway by mistake. And we think this signage will help to make sure people get to where they're going and not to the wrong property. Substantial justice will be served by granting the variance. There's no gain to the public by strict enforcement with the ordinance. Again, the same or larger signs have existed without permits for many years, without any detriment to the town. Obviously, the loss to my client is significant if the variance is denied. It will be difficult to direct people to the property if we're limited to an 8-foot freestanding sign. And once on the property, people are not going to know where to go for the yoga studio unless we have a sign on the building identifying which building is which. The variance will not diminish surrounding property values. You have Mr. Ford's letter, which has confirmed that it should have no negative impact on the neighborhood. And again, these signs are the same or smaller than what has been there historically. And finally, unnecessary hardship. Our Supreme Court has been clear in sign variance cases that the size of the building and similar features of the property are special conditions to be considered. On this property, you have two large buildings, the three-bedroom home, as well as the large barn. One's a residential use, one's a commercial use in this mixed-use neighborhood. That's a special condition that I think justifies having some signage to get people to the barn who are customers and not knocking on the door of the home, and to get people, again, the same kind of thing, because there's such a mix of uses on Mass Road there, to make sure customers pull into the right driveway and get to the right place with the freestanding sign, which is consistent with the sign across the street for the realty and gas company. There's a couple of daycare signs along that stretch. There's a gift shop. All of these signs are very similar to what we're proposing and what has been there historically for the antique shop. There's no substantial relationship between the purpose of the ordinance's restrictions on signs and its application to the property. The purpose of these type of sign regulations is to reduce visual clutter. The barn sign will be barely visible from the road and really is designed to direct people who are already on the property. The freestanding sign is consistent with the neighborhood. It already exists and serves an important purpose to get customers and drivers to the right location. And the proposed use is reasonable. The signs support a permitted use on the property, which is consistent with the types of uses encouraged in this mixed-use neighborhood. Literal enforcement of the ordinance will result in traffic confusion, both on the site, in terms of which building houses the business, and on Mass Road, as people try to find this business, again, which is mixed into a residential and other types of uses. Given all that, this variance should be granted. I should have mentioned back when I first started to talk that Mr. and Mrs. Eastman are here tonight, so they can certainly help with any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have just a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is maybe not so pertinent, but you said that there were no permits for the existing signs. Did the applicants know that when they purchased the property?
No, this has all been a bit of an education for me.
Kind of an assumption since there was already something there?
Yeah, they since the signs were there, they assumed that they could have similar types of signs. They did not go into this knowing that they would need to come here and say please.
Okay, and the freestanding sign, will it have a shielded white light?
It's externally illuminated.
It has a light. The actual road sign did have a permit. I think the sign they just put up, when they originally put up, was a different sign, but it does have two upward-facing shielded lights, which you can change if need be.
Okay, just curious, wanted it on the record. Okay, does the board have any questions?
Just
Jason?
an observation.
What's that?
Well, does anybody look at the sign across the street at the office building? Or Timberwood sign? Or Anna's gift shop? Or Namaste daycare? They're all bigger. That's all my only observation. And did you check, Nancy, the planning board file to see whether the signs were approved when the site plan was approved?
I looked at the planning and zoning file because that's where a sign permit would be located and would still need to be issued a sign permit. The freestanding sign was approved, but approved as an 8 square foot sign, and at some point in time the text on the sign changed, and that could be when it expanded in its height, as far as not the structure itself, but the face of the sign.
So the square footage of a sign is determined how?
I'll read you the definition.
Not the face.
I'm just saying
It's the
that
structure and the face
I
of the
know what
sign.
I know what I know how the size of the sign is defined. What I'm trying trying to explain is that that the original permit that was issued for the freestanding sign was 8 square feet. And then the text that went along with the graphic for that sign permit application was different than the more recent graphic that we had. And I don't recall if there was another antique shop before from Out of the Woods, or if they just changed something about the name. But at some point in time, somebody enlarged the sign. But let me read you the sign area and how it's defined in the zoning ordinance. So, sign measurement. The surface area of a sign shall be determined by the maximum height of the sign multiplied by the maximum width. The surface area of a sign shall include all lettering or elements of a sign, accompanying design and symbols, together with a background, whether opened or closed, on which they are displayed, but not including any supporting framework and bracing which are incidental to the display itself and which are not designed to attract attention. And then there are it expands for different styles of signs, whether they're individual letters. This is how you determine the square footage of the sign, whether they're mounted within a frame. There's another way of determining the size of the sign.
So I'm asking the question. What's the size of the sign? In your review, what's the size of the sign?
My interpretation, it's where the sign is, and it doesn't include the bracing. So in this case, it would not include this, or this nice little top.
Even though there's a street address on
Yeah, I
it?
knew you were gonna call me out on that.
That's for safety purposes.
Yeah, they have to have that.
It's
I
not
wouldn't
designed to
consider
attract
it.
attention.
Yeah.
It's for safety purposes.
And it's, they cut it down instead of making it rectangle.
We don't include,
It's the sign, it's what I would call, what they're hiring their sign company to make. That's what I call the sign.
So it's two-sided?
And two-sided is considered one.
Okay.
I
I
read.
agree with that.
I know you're quizzing us.
All right. I have no problem with the sign, to be honest with you. And since I was the chairman of the board when this project was approved in 2009, the planning board, a sign on the building was part of the project. End of story.
Yeah, perfect.
Make my life easy.
no, it doesn't.
Still the size difference, though.
Yeah, I get you.
Still does not
Still get a
allow,
variance.
the zoning ordinance still does not allow a permit for a wall sign in the zoning district, so that's why they're here.
Any other, Jason?
Just a question on the illumination. Is it going to be dusk till dawn or operating hours?
I think we had a specification on our site plan originally, which has been removed, so we would probably just keep it dusk till dawn. It's irrelevant to us either way. We can run the hours, if that's turned on, it's on a timer.
Yeah, I think my only look at that is that all the other signs are off, so we just want to, I would be happier if it was off at, 10 or 11 or whatever
We can make
reasonable
that,
time is.
yeah,
We
that
could
could,
just
if,
do it with business hours too, I mean, that's our main concern. It's just
could you
being able to
identify
find-
yourself, please?
I'm sorry, I'm Josh Eastman.
Okay, thank you. We could just, if we make a motion to approve, we could make that a condition.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just because it's a residential neighborhood too, I think neighbors would be happy.
What
as
zoning
well.
request? Is there a request, is there a,
There's
law
nothing in
that-
the zoning law.
So,
Not that I saw anyway.
No, there isn't.
so illumination, they're not here for illumination. They're
No.
only here for the size of the sign, so can we really restrict them when they're not here for that?
No, the lighting is part of the sign.
Yeah, I mean.
Not the
I
size
don't-
of the sign is
Right,
what we're
not the
looking at.
size, but.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see, it's
They're
incorporated
not our
into
purview.
the sign. Well, the zoning ordinance does, place restrictions for lighting on signage, in certain situations, so, in this case, it would have to be, the lighting is already there.
Mhm.
I have to assume that it received an electrical permit. I don't know if you happen to come across that in the file or not. That wasn't anything that I specifically was looking for. So if an electrical permit was issued for that, for these lights as they sit today, then I'd say, you know, they're grandfathered in a sense. If they can be angled downward where it still catches your sign but isn't pointed quite towards the sky, then maybe you can tweak it a little bit. But,
Yeah.
ideally, the signs would be down mounted. They're a lot easier to shield when you're trying to light up the face of a sign. But I'm going to assume that the lights that are there have a permit. So I'd say do what you can.
Yeah, the only thing I know is that they were just on the original permit for that sign. I don't really know anything past that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
we obviously, if there's ever any concerns from neighbors or anybody to address those, because.
Yeah, is this the light? Is that unit the light?
I think so.
Yeah, there are 2 posts offset, maybe 5 or 6 feet on either side of the sign.
I mean,
They're on the ground.
Yeah, my concern is one thing, I just don't wanna be doing something that it's not in our purview to do, where we're here to decide the size of the sign that's existing, and we're also here for the variance for the sign in the building. That's all.
I concur with Denise, because I think when we're getting into discussions of illumination, et cetera, it's after we're getting into the planning board purview and not into the zoning issue, which is really only the size of the sign that's before us here. I think in answer to Alan's question, I think it's a simple area calculation of the face of the sign is what says to me that is the size of the sign, and the display hardware is kind of ancillary to that, but not part of it.
But that's a unique definition to this town.
See, this town's,
Mm,
knows what's happening.
No.
We're unique, I know.
Okay,
Okay, does anybody else have any questions of the
are we gonna
applicant?
handle this as 2 different
Oh, yes.
items?
We're going to handle them separately. But before we do that, the board has any other questions or comments?
Not to them.
Okay, then we're going to open the hearing to the public and see if there's anybody in the public who wants to comment on the application. No? Okay, so the public hearing is closed, and we are going to deliberate.
So I just have a comment
Yeah.
to make. So typically, I wouldn't be too thrilled with the building sign because it's, however, they really need it
Yeah?
to identify the location of the business. I don't have any issues because all their abutters on the side of them or in front of them are the same zone. You know, the people behind them are not gonna there's no effective signs on people that are behind them in the residential area, so I don't have any issues at all for
Okay.
either one.
Anybody else? Jason, Len?
I'm just of much the same mind as Denise. What you're looking at here is something that basically changes the property minimally, if at all, when you're reducing the size of the barn sign, you know, and keeping that sign has been in place. I cannot remember. I remember that property long before it was an antique shop. And the sign came in right around the time of the antique shop, so it's been there a decade or more. Again, I don't think it makes any significant changes to the property. I have no problems with it.
Judy, any comments? No? Alan, any further?
No?
Jason?
Good?
No, I think I'm good.
I'm ready to make a motion on the first one.
Okay.
Sorry. The sign permit that was originally approved, it was for, from Out of the Woods and Bell Hill Antiques, and it was approved with 2 shielded externally ground-mounted lights. So I'd say probably what's there today is what was approved with that first 8 square foot
When was
building
that done?
permit.
What year? Curious.
That was '04.
04. So,
Nothing has been assumed that, you know, they haven't been removed and replaced.
yeah,
And
Exactly.
so
And they may, because of the snow, right? That's not,
Repair is allowed.
just dig around.
Repair is allowed.
what?
Repair is allowed.
Repair.
in our ordinances.
Yeah. Are you ready to hear a motion?
I am, but before we do that,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't do a motion for regional impact.
Oh,
So let's, before we
I
vote. we'll-
motion there's no regional impact.
Thank you.
Second. Oops. Jason.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now we can do a motion.
I grant the applicant the variance to put one 11.9 square foot building sign
11.9?
on the barn, 11.9 square feet built. Oh, let's see the new one, did it change on that one too?
No, he
Not the
he
sign.
reduced it. before.
11.66.
Yes, 11.66 square feet. On the building.
Mhm.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. And for the other one, which is the freestanding sign, 14.58 square feet? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Is that
With the shielded lights as allowed in the zoning ordinance? Do we have a motion?
I don't think I'm on.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Grant the variance to allow a 14.58 square foot freestanding sign. In the external lighting, currently there is fine.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, not always. Okay, our next application is Richard and Carolyn Gagnon, Gagnon Family 2018 Revocable Trust, applicant owners seeking a variance to build a 12 by 16 foot, 192 square foot shed on the property that will be 2.3 feet from the side property line, whereas 10-foot setback is required. This concerns section 4.3, table of dimensional regulations of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The property is located at 28 Rochambeau Street, map 17, lot 132, zoned residential 2. And I will entertain a motion regarding regional impact, please.
I move no regional impact.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Gagnon,
Yes, good evening.
good evening. Tell us about your application, please.
All righty. What I'm doing is looking to add a shed to this, next to my garage. It'd be on the right side of the garage. And it would be 2 to 3 feet, not 2.3. sorry,
2 to 3 feet.
2 to 3 feet, you know, approximately, from the property line on that side. It's no problem with the setbacks from the street, from Plummer Street, because it'll be 25 feet from that street.
Bless you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I do watch a lot of legal shows, so that might come in handy today. I've always wanted to say that. And again, the spirit of the ordinance, I believe, is observed because adding a shed to this location does not change the character of the neighborhood. If any of you knew my wife, the shed is not gonna look shabby. It's gonna be well constructed, it's gonna be well maintained. And also, by locating the shed where I'd like to have it, it gives me the accessibility right from the driveway to bring some wood, you know, plywood or long boards that I'm gonna store in there. So it gives me that accessibility. Let's see. There's all the other stuff, I don't know if you want me to go in any more detail on it.
I would like you to make sure you review all your variance, is it variance that he's asking for? Yes.
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 All those criteria that you've included in the application.
Oh,
You need to get those on the record.
okay.
You don't have to read it, you can summarize if you want, you can add to it, whatever you want to do. as
Now,
long
are
as
you talking about the checklist part?
Granting the variance would not
Oh.
be contrary to public interest, those
Okay, I
five, those
get you.
criteria.
Starting with section 1,
Yeah.
this, yep, this part right here.
Okay. I hit most of that up here. Adding the shed. Okay. We are also, like I said, very proud of our house and maintain it very well. And again, I should note, my wife maintains it very well.
You can go
She's
home.
watching
In
tonight.
case
isn't
she's
she?
watching. Now, our property is roughly 90 by 90 when it was subdivided over 100 years ago. If it had been 100 by 100 as standard now, then we would have had the additional 10 feet for the setback, but it wasn't. We're not looking to add a second garage, as much as I would love to, but that's not even in the plans. But I do need additional storage space, and that's the reason for the shed. And if not approved, the hardship that we would have is accessibility to the shed during winter months and adding, not having another workable location in the yard. It would end up having to be like in the middle of the backyard, and that's, again, not acceptable. Our intention in the spring is to remove, we have bushes from Plummer Street all the way to the back of the property. And our intention is in the spring to remove the bushes from where the driveway stops all the way to the back, and then put up a privacy fence instead. And that's gonna help give, you know, another probably half a foot at least of space there. And then I think that's about it on that. Now I can note that I had also submitted with the application signed notes from each of my 5 abutters who stated that they had no issue whatsoever with us locating the shed in that area.
And was one of them your immediately adjacent neighbor?
Oh, yes, Mr. Morozic, oh, yeah. He told me I could put it right on the line, but I wasn't pushing that far.
Okay. Is that all you have to tell us right now?
I,
Okay. Then we'll see if the board has any questions.
yeah,
Go ahead.
Just so I understand this, what I'm looking at the pictures here, that row of hedge plants that goes between you and the adjoining house.
right,
Well, those are on your property and those are the ones that you're proposing gonna take out and put a fence on the line to substitute for that row of hedges
Correct.
then?
that is correct.
But only from where the end of the driveway
driveway is
begins
down.
Right.
back.
I didn't get that.
And then from the end of the driveway forward toward the street, those
stay
hedges will
bushes.
remain.
Okay, so that's why you can't place the setback, you said 2 to 3 feet, that's why you can't place the setback precisely until a
Oh,
fence is in place there.
correct, I mean, yeah,
Okay, understood.
Okay, so when you say 2 to 3 feet, you're talking 2 to 3 feet to the shrubs, not to your property.
to the property line.
Okay. And is there a clear property line? Do you have, I see that you marked that there was a pin located. How about in the front?
The front I have to research, but I believe, and it may be like in the bushes. But I know there was a marker when the bushes were put in, some, oh boy, 15, 20 years ago.
And how wide would you say the shrubs are right now? Yeah.
Maybe 2 feet. Yeah, probably 2 feet. The back ones just never really caught, so
It seems smaller.
they're not as healthy.
So I'm just trying to get placement here, because when we go like this. Are all the shrubs on your property, or do you think they're
Yes, no.
infringing on the other property?
No, they're all
So
on
if they're
that
2
property.
feet wide, you're really looking for a variance for 3 to 5 feet, or 4 to 5 feet from the property line.
He
Am
said
I
it was,
interpreting this
No.
correctly?
Those
No,
shrubs
the
along the
shed.
shed will be removed.
He's gonna mount it right to the property, 2 feet away.
Basically
feet,
to the
two-
edge of
okay,
where the
so-
Right.
Property line.
From wherever the property line truly is, I'll say. From there to
So
the
to the
side of
property
the
line,
shed.
not to the
Yeah.
side of the bushes, okay?
Correct,
I think I
correct.
misunderstood that, yeah.
So-
Yeah,
Judy?
And your neighbor, Mr. Edward Mrozek, said he also knows about the fence, the privacy
Yeah.
fence on the side of the shed, right? The whole length of the property.
the whole length
From,
of the.
from the end
Right,
of the
from the
driveway
driveway, right,
to the end of your backyard,
correct,
yes.
yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, to
Okay.
the end of the backyard? Because I thought, I understood
Yeah.
it to say that it was from the end of the driveway to the end of,
The backyard,
so it's gonna go the whole length.
correct.
Except for the piece that where the
From the
shrubs
front
are
of the
staying in
garage to
place.
the
Right.
street.
Correct, that's staying the shrubs.
So
Okay.
the fence is
driveway.
not up for
A long time.
discussion.
No,
No.
the fence, well, I think it's part of what he's saying he's going to do, so,
On the
Does
variance
he need a
that,
variance for the fence?
No, he does not
Then
need a
it's
variance.
No.
not something
No.
that we
No.
need to discuss.
no,
But
but it can be a condition of approval.
It could be a condition where the
Right.
shed's going. We could do that, yes.
I was just gonna say, the fence is not on the list, but that's why I asked about it, because this just is asking for permission from his neighbor for 2 to 3 feet off the property line. So there should be a notation that it includes the fence. Who knows down the line?
Well, the fence could be the condition of approval. And
Yes.
also in our zoning
It's on the,
ordinance,
yeah, it's on the
in our
property
zoning
line.
ordinance, it states that whatever they represent they're going to do here
Yeah.
is what they're going to do. So he's represented there's going to be a fence, so he's going to do a fence.
Where's it represented?
Can,
He has said that, it was here
it's
within.
in,
And
the-
his
Oh, it's,
application,
it's written, yeah.
Yeah.
can I just ask that, you know, my intention is to do the fence in the spring, but to do the shed now. So, as long as that's understood.
I'll take your hedges. No, just
I'm
kidding.
just saying, come get
Yeah,
them.
take your hedges, yeah.
means you have to dig them out too, Judy.
Yeah.
So you're going to remove the hedges now this construction season and do the shed?
No, I'm not removing the hedges till the spring.
'Cause that seems to me to pose a little problem with how do you determine where the actual property line is if it's in
Which is
the
why
middle of the hedges.
which is why I say 2 to 3 feet. You know,
I, for one, don't want to leave it as 2 to 3 feet. It needs to be more specific.
3 feet.
So you're gonna say it's gonna be 3 feet from the property line?
Correct.
Okay, that's. Jason?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, so just to kind of hold up the picture, so the hedges are gonna remain here,
Correct.
and this is gonna be fenced.
Correct.
So hedges here, fence here.
Correct.
Okay, Denise?
How close to the garage will this shed be?
Probably 1.5 to 2 feet.
Could connect it and make a door.
Well, I originally.
No, no,
No, I originally wanted to connect it, but then I was informed I'd need 15 feet.
yes, Nancy just, yes, informed me.
Yeah, so it's like,
Of that
no,
statement.
I'll make it self-standing.
Alan, were you gonna say something?
I don't think there's enough room.
Oh, no, there's 16 feet.
16 feet for a 12 by 16 foot shed?
For a 12-foot wide shed, yeah.
That's a foot and or 2 feet away from the existing garage. 2 and 2 doesn't equal 5. I think there's.
Oh,
I
so,
think- I
okay,
think-
so 2 feet from the property line then instead of the 3 feet. Okay. Because then you'd have 12 feet plus 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16.
Okay, so it's
How
the shed,
close is your neighbor house to the fence, to the hedge?
He's probably about 8 feet. Or maybe, yeah, probably 8 feet.
the way, when I look at this picture here, it looks like there's about 1 car width between the garage and the property line. Maybe a little bit, well, a little bit more than that, but it's, I kind of agree with Alan that it just doesn't seem to be wide enough.
Think about the existing garage. On the tax card, it's listed as being 15 feet wide.
Yeah,
I will, from experience, these lines aren't accurate.
well, yeah. But still, even at 2 feet, it's mighty close.
So the front, the front facing your shed, it's gonna be
12,
12. 16's running.
correct.
Okay, rectangles being put in. And the measurement from the existing garage to the side property boundary is what?
You said 1 point, or to the side property? I don't
To
know.
the side property boundary,
Approximately 16 feet.
approximately 16 feet. Okay. So why isn't there room, Alan?
Just look at the roof and scale on your picture, on your pictography.
Yep.
And then take and move that same distance over here, and it's on the other side of the hedge.
But I guess we can talk about this when it's closed.
Well, let me ask this, is there any requirement on how far from the garage it can be?
It's a building issue, building code.
Nancy, why can't it be attached to the garage?
Well, it can be, he would need to have
15
a
feet.
variance for required setback of 15 feet instead of 10 feet.
Because it's attached and not detached.
Right. And
So
it
he could leave
amounts to
inches.
greater than 600 square feet, because you have to add the square footage of the house and the garage, whatever else is attached to it.
So he can put inches away from the house and it's detached.
I don't know what the fire
Building
code or building code has
Okay.
as a setback, a distance between the two. I don't know if there is one. Maybe Alan knows.
Yes,
There isn't.
There isn't.
there isn't.
There is from his neighbor.
What do you mean by that?
Depending upon the proximity, there's a certain distance before you have to take and fire rate the exterior wall.
Oh, no, yes, of course.
So he would be leaving, if he left 2 feet between the shed and his property line, because he says between 2 and 3 feet he would leave. And if, this is ifs, it's 8 feet to the property line for his neighbor, that's 10 feet. Is that sufficient?
Also, we're giving a variance that the shed has to be from his property line. As long as he follows code, how close he puts it to the garage is not our
That's correct.
concern.
That's correct. And how
My
wide it
question
is,
was, I wasn't sure if there was a regulation for that.
and how wide the building is, because he can narrow it to make that, to meet
Correct.
the setback.
Right, so we're giving him a setback, he has to make it work within that.
Well, I personally think a 2 foot or 3 feet setback is really small.
What is the fire code to the building next door? What
That's
is-
not, that's really not a.
That's not it?
No.
I mean, it
Jason?
wouldn't be at this point.
Then he wouldn't be able to do it if he couldn't. We would not
wouldn't
override
know.
the fire department.
No,
No.
I mean,
Right.
I
Jason?
guess there's no plot plan, so we don't have any definites here.
Yeah,
So I think I would be a bit more comfortable if there was a plot plan and actual, like, this is where things are, this is where it's going to be. Approximates cause problems.
oh, they definitely do. You know, that's why I said 2 to 3 feet is too wide of a gap to, I mean, 2 feet is only like this.
You
Right, and
can
we're-
make a motion that that you grant him a 3-foot setback, and whatever the width of the garage is what's remaining between that setback and the face of his existing garage. And that's, it'll be whatever, it could be 10.6 feet, it could be 9 feet, it could be 12 feet. We don't know. We don't want to second guess it.
I don't want to second guess, but I want to know before I would approve a motion.
I'm not a fan of doing conditionals. I think that requires too much on the part of both the zoning officer, the building department, a lot of other people to enforce it. I do agree with Jason. I would have much preferred to see some sort of a drawing with placement and some more exact dimensions.
How confident are you that you can, or that front pin is, it exists somewhere in the bushes?
There's control in the neighborhood all over the place there, because I've gotten surveys on other parcels. Plenty of control in the neighborhood.
What does that mean?
That means the surveyors, they got every pin located in
Oh,
It's an easy
Penardville.
job
I used to-
easier job, I should say, but it's not.
My wife used to live on Rochambeau,
oh,
so I've
Do you know
been there,
what-
done that.
Do you know what surveyor has been in the neighborhood?
Yeah, the one we hit here last month.
Oh, Dahlberg, Mike Dahlberg?
Mike Dahlberg has been
Okay.
there. Joe Weicher's been there.
Okay.
Sanford's been there.
Yeah, probably all know.
And then S&H survey?
Mm-hmm. They've been there too?
Yep.
Okay.
I can reach out to you with the contacts, and you can contact them and see if they were able to locate that pin, and then it would be at that corner, and then it would be a matter of tying a line between the
Right, the
The-
post and the pin.
the
and-
front and the rear corner.
Right,
And then making sure that it's taught, I mean, if that's acceptable for
And
the
then
board, I'm not
staking the
speaking
3
for the
foot.
board.
distance.
You're agreeable to coming back with that? 'Cause-
Well, I mean, I'd prefer not to, because it's getting
Late in the season.
late in the season.
I understand that.
What I did like was Alan's comment that, you know, if you folks approve 3 feet from the line, and then I make the shed whatever, if it has to be 11 and a half instead of 12, so be it. And part of it would be that, you know, I have the line surveyed to mark it out so that I know exactly where the 3 and go from there.
Giving somebody an opportunity to find where their property is existing. I think he has a back corner bound there, if I'm not mistaken.
Does say he has that.
So, you got a place to start. And so, that street is pretty well surveyed with markers up and down. Because I almost bought my father-in-law's house. So I know they're there.
Mhm.
If we state that it has to be 2 feet from the property line, whatever size shed is gonna fit in there has to fit between that property line and the garage and having access to it.
And the distance between the shed and the garage would have to meet building standards.
He has to get, yes. Yeah, I'm gonna throw a curve here, but what's behind your garage?
Backyard.
Because I struggled with the hardship on this when I first looked at it, and then I understand with going in the winter, it's easy access. You know, I also think in the back attached to the garage, might have, you know, I don't know, close to it, there's a door, that's all.
Yeah.
Might be an easier,
Again, I'm dealing with, you know, it's sheets of plywood that I'm gonna bring in, and to have to truck them, not truck them, but carry them around to the back.
Or through.
through the garage.
That's what I think you were thinking, right? That's what I was thinking too. Go
No, I
through.
wasn't thinking of
No.
going through the garage.
So, I have a question.
Plus, we have a tree right there, if you look, and, you know, putting the shed added to the back of the garage would be close to right on that tree.
So, I'm sure this probably doesn't fall under us, but I'll ask anyway. So if we say 2 feet from the boundary line, it gets built, and then somebody disputes that property line, and you determine that it is now less than what the board approved, what happens?
Takes it down.
Yeah, so move it.
Okay, so.
Nancy's over there going,
So-
oh.
So, yeah, Nancy makes for a very long day. Okay,
Can I ask one more question concerning that? Who would be the authoritative person that I could have come and inspect it? To say, okay, that is the, you know, I have it surveyed, that is the property line. Where I have the markers down is 2 feet, you know, or 3 feet. The markers are there. You know, who could I have so that we don't worry about that down the road?
Well, I think the recommendation is that you do have the property surveyed, and then they would be able to tell you exactly how many feet off your garage, your property line.
Right,
And then it would be a very clear understanding. And I guess our zoning code enforcer wouldn't. Somebody, well, but she's, you know,
Nancy.
if something is not built to what
Right. Zoning.
we gave a variance to, that's the recourse the town has.
So that's basically what I was leading to, is that if I do get it surveyed, and then Nancy comes and agrees that the markers for the 2 or 3 feet is good, you know?
I don't know if that's how it works. Nancy?
Well, if we, in some circumstances, will require a certified foundation plan for certain structures beyond, you know, construction of a single-family home. In cases where garages have come to the zoning board for relief from the setback, I've required certified foundation plans before they can build. Sheds, I don't know of, I can certainly tell you that I have not required something like that for a shed. It seems like an awful lot of money to bring the surveyor back a second time. So I'm not sure how it's been handled in the past. If it's been checked by somebody in the department, I can tell you, you know, none of us are surveyors.
Right.
So, but if simply, sometimes what can be done is if whoever is building in this case, the shed, can stake out the corners, have the surveyor go out there, survey the property, and then based on the staking out of the corners, the surveyor can say, okay, the shed in this, just give me a letter, the shed in this proposed location as defined on the ground by the owner will be this many feet from the side property boundary.
And that's a very good recommendation.
That seems like a much more reasonable way to proceed.
Yes.
So one other question. So if we were to say, from a zoning board perspective, 2 feet from the side boundary line, then that would become a matter between the owners, and the town has no responsibility. Because I'm looking to make sure we protect the town.
It becomes more of a civil matter,
Correct.
I believe,
So
doesn't
as long as
I mean,
the
if
town
the,
isn't going to have an issue. then-
yeah, if it's built in the wrong way, or in the wrong location, kind of overlapping the boundary, or too far into the boundary or something, that becomes a civil matter.
I'm not sure it could be a civil matter if the person is not actually trespassing onto the
Well,
person's property.
you were talking about if they actually were on their property?
No, what I'm saying is if we, as the zoning board, were to say that we would grant the variance 2 feet from the boundary line, and that's how we draw it, then if he builds the shed and 2 years down the road, they determine that the property line isn't actually where he thinks it is, it's in 5 feet, now 2 feet within the property line is obviously going to take the shed down.
Right.
But that's not on the town to deal with, because we said from 2 feet from the line. As long as that's protecting
Still,
the town.
it still falls on the town to, if they catch it, to say you need to remove it.
And sometimes things like this are discovered when someone is looking to purchase a property and doing their
And sheds
due
are
diligence.
pretty much considered a temporary, they don't have the foundation.
That was gonna be my question
The
is,
setbacks still.
Oh, I know the
is this
setbacks
structure
still
gonna have a
apply. I
foundation?
know the setbacks still apply, but if by chance it had to move, it's not like moving
It
a
makes it
garage.
easier.
Right.
Right.
Judy, you seem like you have something to say.
Oh, no, I was just gonna ask if there was a certified plot plan already. Oh, you already know that. Oh, bummer. Or does that add a fee?
It would be in your packet, trust me, if there was one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Only on recent construction of the area certified site plans for mortgaging purposes.
Once in a while, we're, pleasantly surprised and we'll find one on an older property if, someone may have had their property surveyed or needed one for a variance request. Could be a number of reasons.
I think that whatever we decide, there has to be enough space there to be able to walk that property line along the side of whatever
I
that.
mean, with 2 feet, you can barely fit a lawnmower.
No, I think it has to be 3 feet. No questions asked, because you need to be able to walk that side.
But if there's no rule, if there's nothing written,
You can
that's
get on
just
the
your-
other side.
That's
You're
just
the
your
zoning-
personal
Yeah.
choice. You should see what I have for a side yard. It's
Well, I know
18
what you have for a
inches.
side yard. I've
And
been
it's
there.
cement. Yeah. So I mean, that's your personal choice. This isn't about.
But just remember, the applicant is here to request relief from the 10-foot setback requirement. So it's up to the board to determine whether
Right.
to grant that relief or to modify the amount
Yes, but
of
not to.
relief requested.
Right.
What?
But
And
there's
but
no
he- but he-
document.
but he says 2 to 3 feet in his application.
Now he's requesting.
But I have no problem changing that request to 3 feet.
You just didn't realize how critical it was. You get that?
Right.
You say 2 to 3 feet, but like Nancy said to me one time, Judy, 12 inches where you live is it's like 100
Well,
feet,
I
you know
think
what I mean?
that's
It's precious.
what Gail always
So,
says, is that,
It's
each-
relative to just,
Yeah, I mean, each application is its own merit, right?
Right.
2 to 3 feet on an 80-foot distance is very different from 2 to 3 feet when there's only 4 feet between them.
Right. So that only leaves about a foot of space between the shed and the garage.
Which we don't think we need to have any space there.
You can build it right up tight to, you can set it, not build it, set it, his garage or shed, right tight to the garage.
as long as it's.
Other than the
Been
windows on
done-
the side, you'll have to
done
fix those.
before.
As long as it's not connected, yeah.
Your
So it's
butter
all set.
in the backyard, is that a shed there? It's not showing on the tax map. So if you guys are
He
on
has-
right
I'm
here.
not here to get any neighbors in trouble.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
asking.
No, you have an existing shed, right?
It's there.
No, I don't have a shed.
No, you don't,
It's
I'm
right
sorry.
there?
I thought you did,
I'm
yeah.
not sure which picture. Oh,
In the propane tanks too?
You see propane tanks?
In here?
Well,
On my-
pictometry is not accurate,
Exactly, and I know that, that's,
really not accurate.
so if it's not accurate there, it may not be accurate here.
That's correct.
that might be, it's one of those, not inflatable garages, but one of those,
Yeah,
Canvas.
canvas
Yeah.
tents,
Canvas
yeah,
tent.
that's fine, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to get anybody in trouble, I'm
Yeah.
looking
Like a
at what's
Quonset
right
hut
close to
shape?
you.
yeah.
Now we know what a Quonset is.
It's like now you.
In case you had any doubts.
Does the board have any more questions or comments of the applicant? Because I need to open it to the public. Formality. Okay, the public hearing is open, or the hearing is open to the public with no members of the public here. It's also going to be closed, and the board is going to enter deliberations.
Thank you.
Well, I don't like not having absolutes, I mean, if we say an absolute, like property line 3 feet, I think I would be okay with that. As written,
Right.
yeah. I'm too new to make a motion on this one, so I'm gonna listen to some deliberation.
Coward.
Big chicken.
I'll make a motion to approve a 3-foot setback,
Sideline setback.
sideline setback.
Are you going to require the bounds be set
Nope.
or anything?
No, I'd propose that amendment that's subject to the applicant getting a determination of where the side property line is. Maybe we don't need to go, pardon me, as far as a formal survey of the property, but to locate the front and back pins and make an exact determination of where the property line is and make approval subject to getting that boundary determined and 3 feet from that.
Oh, I like that.
I'll accept that.
I think it's an excellent way.
And I'll second it with that.
Can you sort that out for us, Gail?
I can.
Carry the floor.
Okay, so we have that motion. 3-foot set line setback, or sideline setback, subject to a determination of the side property line located from the front and back pins.
Yes.
So Alan, you made that original motion. Len, you seconded with
Well, I
a...
proposed that as an amendment to Alan's. He said he would accept
Okay,
it.
so Jason, you're doing the second. Okay.
Unless Len
No.
wants to do it.
I like that.
Okay,
That's
so
the
we
way
have
it
the
allows
motion.
the applicant to get to work on the thing without undue delay.
I mean, I'd be buying a shed, just moving it on site, all built. Put it up against the garage.
Okay, so shall we take a vote? Are we ready for a vote, or is there more discussion?
I think I'm good with that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Dick.
Please find that front pin.
Yes.
I'll just make the comment that I want to do that, because
Smart, yeah,
down the road, I don't want to get a notice saying you have to move that shed,
that's right.
so I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Right.
Especially if you're building it the way your wife says you have to.
Oh, yeah.
I get it.
Okay, before we close, I have one other business that I want to bring up, and that is just, well, it's something that's not in our procedures, our ZBA procedure handbook. But that is the issue of getting our packets a little bit sooner than we've been getting them. Because we get them on
This one was a
Friday,
tough one.
Friday or Saturday, and it's,
That's on me, and I apologize. It's this vicious circle, dribble wheel of trying to, catch up on things, and then I have to start writing my staff reports, and then catch up on things and writing the staff reports. So, and it just depends on, traffic in and out. So it was crazy, and I apologize.
Well, truthfully, it hasn't been just this month. I've noticed several months where I've thought, gee, we got them late, and I just never said or did anything about it. But there's 21 days between the time they're supposed to submit their application to the date of the hearing. So can we make a commitment to for the board to have them at least go out the Monday before?
Sure. Yep.
Does that sound okay to the board?
It sounds fine to me. I'd be happy if I could just get them by email
Yeah, I was just gonna say
on
the
that
same thing.
earlier.
Well, yeah, and I've done that.
Send out, mail out, then she must mail them on Wednesday.
No, she mailed them on
We-
Thursday this week.
Yeah,
We got them on
Thursday.
Friday.
Yeah, because of when I finished the reports, and what I've done in the past, when I know that it's gonna be tight, is I'll scan the applications and send those out along with the PDF of my staff report.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
The
Well, the
holiday.
staff report is a start, but we don't have the applicant's application.
no, that's what I'm saying. Scan the
Oh,
application.
scan,
I've
okay,
done,
I
I've
missed
done
that
that.
part.
I've done that before, but yes, Monday.
On the Mondays before.
I'm semi-retired, no.
Mail or,
She haven't
mail or
said
receive,
help.
there's a big difference
Well,
there.
yeah, so that.
Well,
that's
as
what I
long
was
as we
gonna say.
receive it, I mean, I guess Ideally, I'd like to get it in the mail, because I'm a hands-on person, and I don't
Right.
want to have to be printing out all this.
No, you shouldn't have to print anything out.
So.
Do you want to receive them on Monday, or do you want to?
No, as long as if they're in the mail by Monday, we should
I
have
agree.
them on Tuesday. That gives us a week to be
This
able.
is Goffstown mail. You really think you're gonna get them on Tuesday?
Well-
We did this week. You
So-
mailed them on Thursday, I got mine on Friday.
I think
So,
it varies, but I'm fine with that.
but if there's an option that we could get these by email, because if I'm traveling, having, I didn't get them this week until Sunday.
Yeah,
So-
Same with me.
yeah. Okay, so if we could get them by email and then have the written, have the paper version in the mail by Monday, that would be good.
We'll make it so.
Okay.
What is the date of our next meeting?
Our next meeting is, I don't know. Anybody got a calendar handy? October, yes.
Well,
First Tuesday in October. I would assume. That'd be the thing.
October
it's the
5th.
5th, I'm just checking to see, I'm gonna be out of state the last week in September, so, but I'll be back for the 5th.
Okay. All right, so are we all set? Do we have a motion to,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.